How snapshots are managed in globcon? Let's have an example starting with a fairly simple device like the DirectOut Andiamo 2. Let's have a look at the current settings. From the Home tab, we can see that both input and output analog levels are set to high. In the Output tab, all the digital gains are set to 0 dB and all the channels are unmuted. From the Routing tab, we can see that nothing is currently patched to the MIDI output, while the analog out are fed with a straight patch from MIDI input. Let's move now to the Snapshot tab and press the New button to create a new snapshot. The newly created snapshot gets automatically a default name followed by a dash and a number. It can obviously be renamed. All the parameters controlled by globcon with the current values are permanently stored into the dataset when a new snapshot is taken. Let's now change some parameters going to the Input tab and select the low level. From the Output tab, we select all the channels with a click on one and then with the shortcut Command+A on Mac or Ctrl+A on Windows. Reduce the level down to -48 dB, then press ESC to clear the multi-selection. Shift and mouse drag to select the first 8 channels and mute them. Clear and select channels from 17 through 24 and mute them. From the Routing tab, we set a patch tool to quickly change the current analog patch. Then we added the first 8 labels of the analog output channels. We are now ready to take a new snapshot to permanently store the new current dataset. In the right section of the Snapshot tab, we can work on the scope set, organized in scope areas and scope details. The scope set offers the user the possibility to select which portion of the dataset should be actually recalled from the snapshot, while leaving untouched the rest. Scope areas are a set of parameters logically related, in this Andiamo example, to input, output, routing, clock, and settings. Each scope area is then divided in several scope details to allow quick selection with higher granularity. Every single snapshot is a combination of a dataset and its own scope set. Let's make some examples. If, from snapshot number 1, we want to recall the portion of the dataset related to all the input parameters, we can click on the All button of the input scope area. Red is the color coding of a portion completely included in the scope set. In this case, the input scope area, comprising the scope details input labels and input levels, is entirely selected. If we press Recall now, only parameters related to the input will be updated with the values previously stored in the dataset of snapshot number 1. All the other parameters of our Andiamo device will remain the current ones, unchanged. To recall a bigger portion of the dataset, we just have to click on the All button of the several scope areas. When the whole scope set is red, which means completely selected, the entire dataset is recalled, updating all the current device parameters with values from the snapshot. Keeping Alt depressed while clicking on All or None of any scope area toggles the entire scope set selection. To exclude or unscope some details, just click on the relevant N for None button. Gray is the color coding of a portion completely excluded from the scope set, while orange is the color of a section with some parameters included in the scope set. The input scope area is orange because only some parameters are included, the input level in this example, while some others, the input labels, are excluded from the scope set. If we now exclude the input levels too, the entire input scope area turns gray, meaning that in case of recall, nothing will be changed about inputs. We can keep changing the scope set of snapshot number 1 by clicking on the All or None buttons of scope areas and details. Every snapshot has its own scope set, and there's no need to save it. It just stays with the last settings left by the user. Enjoy some more examples watching the next video tutorial. Powerful, easy, globcon.